Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
With threats to our nation waiting around every corner, adaptability is more important than ever. When conditions change without notice, quick strategic thinking is crucial. And with obstacles consistently impending, determination is essential in overcoming them. It's this willingness, decisiveness, and resilience that sets Marines apart. With our fighting spirit, we don't just fight battles, we win them. Marines are the constant our nation counts on to fight the unknown. And through adaptable problem solving, we do just that. Learn more at marines.com.
Hello, Portland Trailblazer fans, and welcome to another edition of the Blazers Edge podcast. We hope that you are doing well today, catching us on iTunes, on Stitcher, or wherever you might be hearing us. We are glad you are along with us. You'll get straight basketball talk. You'll get interesting basketball talk. You'll get mildly Xanaxed post-trade deadline salary cap hell basketball talk. For myself, I'm Dave Deckard, managing editor of BlazersEdge.com. With me, as always, we did not trade you. You are still here, Dan Marang, feature writer and general good guy, podcast guru. How are you feeling post-trade deadline now?
It's Xanax mixed with some Theraflu, some chloroseptic cough throat spray stuff, and I gotta say this is literally the first time I've ever gone through an entire box of cold medicine. Like, you get a 2 or 3 day flu, you maybe use a couple of those pills that are in there. I literally exhausted the entire box. So the trade deadline dreariness mixed with an actual cold flu awfulness has made for an interesting week, to say the least.
And snow. That's got to make you feel better psychologically.
It was flurries of awfulness is basically what I've had for the past week.
Speaking of flurries of awfulness, trade deadline. I mean, well, the Blazers were at least neutral. They didn't really do anything. I mean, we talked a little bit about that. Obviously, their move was before. It was Nurkic for Plumlee. We've covered that. So, as I said, you don't need to bag on the Blazers for not making a trade deadline move. They did.
Just a few days early.
A lot of people were expecting more. Were you expecting more? Are you all disappointed that they didn't make another move?
I thought they maybe would find a way to get rid of Festus's contract. And the rumors are out there that there was a pretty close deal as far as consummating the deal with Denver. But instead of taking Festus Ezeli's non-playing contract, they took Roy Hibbert's, I don't know if he's playing contract.
Barely playing
contract.
Yeah.
I mean, stopped short of saying corpse of player, but they got something that possibly maybe kind of sort of could be an asset at one point in time. I guess.
Denver got a RC car with fading batteries as opposed to an RC car with no batteries and the battery of resolve.
Yeah, it's those Sunbeam batteries.
Either way. Yeah, no, it's the ones that came with the remote control, those that have names that you don't recognize. Yeah, exactly. And Chris Haynes, of course, ESPN had that for us. And, even so, I mean, they would have dumped $7.4 million in salary, which would have made, that's $3.5 million in actual savings from Paul Allen's checkbook, which is not insignificant, but they wouldn't have gotten any return on that likely. I mean, look what the Nuggets traded for Hibbert, which is
maybe free up a roster spot. So
yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Exactly, that would have been, they could have maybe picked somebody up, but I don't see the Blazers as buyers here exactly. So I'm not sure they would have done that, because I think the move would have just been this is an absolute nightmare. Let's try to save 3% on this nightmare and get rid of Festus's salary. Didn't happen.
It's movie season, so I mean, if you want to talk about buyers, is it safe to say that Dallas was the Dallas Buyers Club? Huh?
Yeah. There you go. And the Blazer fans were Wolf of Wall Street with about 7,000 F-bombs in the first 5 minutes after the trade deadline expired. In any case, yeah, especially when Nerlens Noel ended up being traded. Long rumored. Everybody thought that was going to happen. Then the attention went to Jahlil Okafor for a minute. But then, as it turned out, the Sixers held on to Okafor, traded Nerlens Noel to the Dallas Mavericks for Andrew Bogut, who they're subsequently going to cut, Justin Anderson, who only semi-exists, and a 2017 first-round draft pick that is so protected that it is almost certainly going to turn into 2 second-round picks. So in essence, the Sixers traded away Noel for a guaranteed pair of second-round picks. Is that less than you thought he would go for? And are you surprised the Blazers weren't in on that?
Yeah, let's back this up a little bit. Remember, the Philadelphia 76ers gave up Jrue Holiday for Nerlens Noel. And so they essentially turned Jrue Holiday into 2 second-round picks, and I believe there was a first-round pick included in that deal for Holiday as well. But, man, you want to talk about rate of return. Or ROI.
Yeah, trust the process. Trust the process. That was processed. That was like blenderized.
I mean, if you want to contrast Hinkie against Colangelo, man, not exactly a stellar deal to pull off there. So Dallas of all places. I mean, of all the landing spots that I heard for Nerlens Noel, that's the last one that I expected him to turn up in.
Not entirely surprising upon reflection, though, because what does Mark Cuban like to do? He likes to pay guys, and he likes to pay guys who have promise. Now, he doesn't usually get them that young. He usually waits till they've grown up a little bit. But Nerlens, his contract is up. He's going to be basically due for a big payday. I am guessing that as much as anything is why the Blazers wouldn't be in on that deal. I mean, maybe they didn't like him, who knows, but for sure they wouldn't have liked already being on the hook for $133 million next year. And then if, let's say, they had just traded away a couple of a couple of second round draft picks for him, then turning that zero salary into $15 or $18 million on top of that was probably not in the future.
Yeah, no, the math there is just you're getting into quantum physics and stuff like that when you talk about the salary cap and luxury tax implications. The only way this kind of deal works is if it's Alan Crabb or Evan Turner going back out, because then basically you're saying that, okay, they're a redundancy of the backcourt, whatever you want to shape it, but their salary going out is essentially going to be the money we're now going to pay to Nerlens Noel because you've got his rights to go over the cap to sign him.
Yeah, and would you have done Evan Turner or Alan Crabb for Nerlens Noel?
Is this a serious question?
Yeah.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. It's just...
Yeah.
If that was really the breaking point of all this, I wouldn't know what to say.
I imagine Philly wouldn't want that. Probably didn't want that salary invested in that player. Probably maybe they didn't value Crabb enough, or maybe obviously Evan Turner, that would be a little bit ouchy. But yeah, would you have traded like Evan Turner and a first round pick? Evan Turner and Memphis's pick for Noel. I think I might have do that. Yeah, because you dump at least part of the salary there. Alan Crabb and Cleveland's pick. Yeah, I think I still would have done that to get a center. Now Noel is heap of rebounds for Dallas. That's fantastic. He's only shooting 38% in the one game that he's played for them, but he's played 2 by now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's played 2 now. He was 3 for 8 in his opening. He was 8 or 9 points and 10 boards and a couple blocks, a steal, and a game-winning dunk.
Yeah, and then he played another one. He's done okay so far. I mean, he's shown some promise, but then so has Nurkic. But that might have been another factor, I guess, if they really liked Nurk, that you didn't want to interfere with that. But
yeah, because you're putting Noel in the exact same position he's in Philly, right? You've got another young big that's... Because Noel, he can play the 4, but he's not. That's not where he's best suited. And the last thing Portland needs to do is to take another young big guy and try to put a round peg in a square hole. We've seen how that's worked over the last couple of years.
Yeah, not well. At the same time, don't you have to just stock up on talent? I mean, just for the talent. Okay, would I rather have Noel and Nurkic in the center core than just Nurkic right now, no matter how they played, simply because I'm thinking the shape of this roster right now is not going to be the shape of it in 3 years anyway.
It's a good point.
I think I'd still go for the asset.
Yeah, no, you're right. So, as far as an acquisition and asset standpoint, you're probably not wrong. How you go about restocking the farm. And again, we're talking about 21, 22, 23-year-old guys here. These are all very young, but they aren't totally raw. They've got a little bit of a resume where you can go, okay, yeah, no, these guys have got some good things on tape, and they're still the difference between these two guys and say I'm Mason Plumlee is Mason Plumlee, he might get a little bit better. He might refine some things here or there, but you're looking at Nurkic and Noel as guys that can still take monumental leaps. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference.
If the Blazers drafted Noel with the Memphis pick in June, would you think that was a steal or a great move?
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? If Noel was sitting in that draft.
Let's say he's a senior in college right now and you snack him with the 20th pick.
Or let's just say this, Noel. Let's magically transport. He's available to draft in there. Would you take this version of Noel with that Memphis pick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's a no-brainer, isn't it? I mean, I would have made that move for sure. I think the Blazers didn't, in part because they just couldn't afford to at this point. It's another timing issue. If this was 2 years ago and the salary cap room is available, I think they take a harder look at it. Now, Serge Ibaka also moved. I mean, we talk about him. We skated around the idea of the Blazers possibly trading for him, just as we did with almost every big.
You knew Ibaka was getting moved, just like Noel. It just made way too much sense.
Yeah, and he's going to get paid more, right? So you have the same salary issue there, although presumably you'd have to trade more going out for him than you would for Nerlens. But Serge Ibaka to Toronto, did you like it?
I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we saw I think we saw old Serge there against Portland the other night. He was doing things. He has played with his back to the basket a couple times and completely caught me off guard. He had footwork that I didn't know he had. I mean, I think I said on Twitter he went from, awful shake move to dream shake in about 2.2 seconds. It was something that definitely caught me off guard. You saw defensive help Ibaka that was playing, knocking down shots. I mean, this is a guy they just integrated into the team. So, yeah, it looks like a heck of a move. And now with Kyle Lowry out for 4 to 6 weeks, they're going to need somebody to pick up the slack offensively and defensively. And Ibaka, while he's not a perimeter guy, he can easily get you 16 to 18 points a game. And defensively, he can bring it. It's just a matter of whether or not he will. So for Toronto's sake, if this works out and they can kind of blend this all together, their salary cap space kind of makes sense to sign Ibaka for the long term. So, yeah, and the other moves that they made kind of made room for Ibaka to get in there and grow, and the same thing with PJ Tucker. So they're doing some pretty good moves up. And Masai Ujiri is made some pretty phenomenal moves over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. So look, we compare. Obviously, you can't compare the Raptors and the Blazers and their current situations, but at one point, both of these were kind of up and coming teams, and had some good guards and were ready to make moves. I don't want to talk about the trajectory as much as I want to talk about the type of moves. And we talked about the Blazers making smart moves, basically insider smart chess moves, moving the pawn in the right direction. Okay, got it. I mean, and the Blazers have done plenty of that back from the time when they were signing Robin Lopez all the way on up, right? But they're little moves. They're eating away at the corners. I mean, Toronto just made a major league move. They just ate the whole pie, and they had the space to do it, and they pulled the trigger. They could get their guy to come. They're relatively confident, I assume, that they're going to re-sign him, or at least that they're willing to take that risk. That's what a championship move looks like, and that's just what's been missing from the Blazers for, I don't know, half a decade now.
Yeah, no, I mean, Toronto they put their chips on the table, and I don't want to say necessarily went all in, because I think an all in move would it would be something of desperation. I think that sometimes it comes out of a position of weakness and not always strength. But I think Toronto went in on a position of strength in that, and this is before obviously the Kyle Lowry wrist surgery news. But I mean, you look at their team and how they're constructed. Where's their weakness? I mean, you could say that their weakness is not having anybody outside of Lowry and DeRozan who can really carry the scoring load. But I mean, they've got one of the better, if not, top 3 best backup point guards in the league in Corey Joseph. They've got a bevy of big men. I mean, you go up and down the roster, you've got Valanciunas, you've got Pirtle, you've got Ibaka, you've got Siakam. I mean, there's Nogueira. There's so many guys on that roster. And now you add a PJ Tucker to fill in for not DeMar DeRozan, but DeMar Carroll. And DeRozan's a guy that can swing between the 2 and the 3. And their roster construction is really, really nice. And you don't look at those and go, okay, this guy's getting really old. I mean, with the exception of Lowry, I think all these guys are all 26 to 29. Yeah. That's a pretty nice setup, right?
Use a poker analogy. Like, the Raptors are playing some smart hands here, and it looks like they just kind of want a big one. Unless Ibaka walks, then I guess they should have folded. But still, they feel in position that they can push in those chips. Whereas the Blazers, every time they make a move, they just keep rebuying. And it's not like they're necessarily losing the hands. It's just they just rebuying chips every time. Like, at some point, we're going to push these in and make a move, and the payoff never comes. Now, speaking of payoff, there were rumors that Andre Drummond might have been for sale. Was Ramona Shelburne, I believe, of ESPN, connected him a little bit with Portland. How much do you believe that? First of all, let's just say, do you think Drummond was really for sale at an affordable price, or were the Pistons kind of just saying, hey, if there's a pie in the sky offer, we're going to take it? And second, how do you think Drummond would fit with the Blazers?
I don't know what's going on in Detroit right now. I really don't. If you've listened to anything that's come out of there for the past couple of weeks, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was a guy that could be had because they don't feel like he should get the money he's going to get in the offseason. That's crazy to me. If you're asking me about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope or Alan Crabb, I hate to beat up on Alan Crabb, but KCP's a better player. And he's going to get probably Alan Crabb money. And if you're angry about a player like that getting that money, you're in the wrong business. And if you're willing to just shop that guy because you don't want to pay the guy that money because you're not sure about Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, again, you're in the wrong business. I don't know. I mean, if you're trying to build a team, you want a 3-and-D guy, right? A guy who's a tertiary ball handler, can play both sides of the ball, knock down shots, and just get things done for a relatively decent salary that's below the superstar max. I mean, that's KCP. That's what he does. So he's available. Reggie Jackson's available. And you hear the rumors like this, that Andre Drummond's available. You have to believe that that's not coincidence that basically everyone's available. So I think where there's smoke,
they probably feel like they're stalled. I mean, and I'll agree with that somewhat. I mean, it's not like you think of Detroit Pistons and you're thinking, wow, this team is going to make a championship run. They're always interesting, but right now as we speak, they sit at 28-31. That's good enough.
They look like Portland East. They were a team that did really well last year, and those guys got their money, and they haven't really taken a step forward. Now, I think it's a little bit different than the situation in Portland, just because of the way their team is set up and the age and time frames of the rosters. But, man, if you're Portland, I think they'd be silly not to kick the tires on Drummond, right?
Oh, I mean, yeah, depending on the asking price. Now, Shelburne suggested McCollum. I almost don't want to go into that because we've done CJ McCollum for everybody. Yeah. And I'm not sure about the percentages of. I think Lillard and Cousins would have been an amazing duo, at least an entertaining, interesting duo to watch. I don't think Lillard and Drummond does the same thing, frankly. I think that you lose something there. But if you were going to do the dream thing of they just want to dump Drummond's salary, and he's making between, I think, 22 and 27 million over the next 5 years, which is not that unreasonable. I mean, that's Alan Crabb money, right? So you're looking at a guy who scores 15 a game, and his per minute scoring is good. I mean, he's good at the shots that he takes. He's a phenomenal. He's a phenomenal rebounder. Block shots in the right situations. I mean, do I like him as a defender? Oh, a whole lot. I mean, especially compared to what the Blazers have right now. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's any doubt, but I do doubt that Detroit is going to give away their player. I mean, no matter how much you're questioning, you don't give away your big player for anything less than at least a big player in return. I don't mean size.
But do you?
Significant.
Is that so? Because I think going forward for at least the next 12 months, there needs to be an asterisk on every trade deal that says, well, at least it wasn't Boogie's deal.
Yeah, I mean, so let's talk about that for a minute, because that's going to be the exception that is brought up.
You have to put that qualifier on everything. The whole who says no thing has an asterisk next to it, and it says Vivek Ranadiv, on the subline. It's like, oh, yeah. God, the fact that I have to put an asterisk on everything now is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. So do you think we'll ever see anything like that again about the Boogie trade amount?
I thought the same thing in the James Harden deal. It was just one of those things where it was just like, you gave up what to get what?
Sure. I mean, I could see that, but at least, I mean, there was a Jeremy Lamb involved, which, I mean, take or leave what he's become.
Jeremy
but at
Lamb
the time,
or Buddy Hield.
Yeah, well, I'll still take Lamb. Well, I mean, okay, let's not look at backwards perspective though. At the time, Lamb was not an insignificant prospect. And also you knew that, look, this had everything to do with under being A, capped out or facing the tax, and B, already looking at Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. So it wasn't like they traded their guy, they traded their third guy. And I get that the exchange was not equal, but at least you could see some justification for that. I mean, the Kings, I'm struggling to ever, I mean, you have to almost go back to like Ralph Sampson or something like that to try to find somebody who was traded for so little, who was at the pinnacle of his production and was the number one guy on his team, and it wasn't even close. It was just astonishing, and until further evidence comes up,
this is like Herschel Walker to the Vikings type stuff.
Yeah, you're not able to. You're just not. You can't bring up Boogie trades. That's a party foul. You can't bring up Boogie as evidence that any trade could happen, because it's like, no.
Seriously,
it's like saying,
I'm telling you, I maintain that the biggest fan of the Boogie deal outside of the Pelicans is Sam Presti.
Well, and
he's just sitting there going, thank you for never having to put my trade mistakes ever on the table again, because this will sit above them for time immemorial.
Yeah. So, yeah, not applicable. I mean, it's a meme now. It's a joke now. Be interesting to see how that washes out in New Orleans.
We'll research this and wonder how did that trade go down?
Yeah, I mean, stuff. You know, the radio and TV beams that go out into space, supposedly it might hit other civilizations someday.
There's aliens 3 billion light years away that are going to go, what?
They're going to go, no, this was all fake. We figured it out. No, that was every broadcast we're receiving is like, this is like a comedy show. So let's talk about the waiver wire for a minute now. Done with trades. That didn't happen. A lot of people they're shaking loose. Brandon Jennings, Luis Scola, Darren Williams, Jose Calderon, are four of the big veteran names that have come up. I mean, big in context of being waived, okay?
If you want an actual big, Andrew Bogut's another one too, so he'll end up somewhere with either any of the contenders anyways.
Let's just talk abstract. Now, let's not talk about salary or slots or anything like that. Do you believe that any of those five players, Jennings, Scola, Williams, Calderon, or Bogut, could theoretically help the Blazers?
Out of all of those guys, Scola probably could. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I've despised him for so long. But savvy veteran presence, understands. He was never a great defender, but in a team scheme, he understands how things are supposed to be. I've maintained for a while now, I think Portland's missing some of that veteran sage wisdom, both on the floor and off the floor. It's probably the closest thing you're going to get because you're not getting that from Brandon Jennings.
God, no.
Darren Williams.
Darren Williams.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, now I've heard from a few folks.
You cannot bring Darren.
I know, and this has been a recent news to me in that, particularly in Utah, that there's a growing sentiment of fans in Utah that want to bring him back. Apparently, there was more going on as far as Jerry Sloan's ouster than just Darren Williams. And granted, he played, from what I've been told, a huge part of that whole situation, that whole saga. But at the same time, those were there have said that he was unfairly targeted for basically the entire thing. So I don't know, but Portland doesn't need guard help in that sense. Having somebody like that, if Portland was a Cleveland or a Golden State right now where they're pushing for the finals, yeah, I could see that. Having an older guy out there that you can bring in to calm things down if somebody gets in foul trouble or you need to shift things up a little bit. But yeah, otherwise, no, you're definitely not bringing. Or you could bring Jose Calderon on and really not play defense. That could be entertaining.
Yeah,
let me show you how to literally not play defense.
In the LaMarcus Aldridge era, he's one of the guys that I thought, well, maybe this guy can help the Blazers, but it'd be a disaster now.
God, yeah.
Scola, I mean, backing up your point, by the way, I don't see how you could not like Luis Scolas, like not liking Wolf or something.
Like his hair just kills me, man.
What if he dyes it with that new color changing dye? That'd be cool. In any case, so I mean, Scola has offense still. I mean, he's not scoring a lot for Brooklyn, or hasn't.
Nobody's scoring a lot for Brooklyn. Come on.
Yeah, it's not like, he's gotten a lot of playing time, seen a lot of court action. His per minute scoring is not that far off of the last few years. And he's, he can hit a 3-pointer. He can stretch the floor. And like you said, the veteran thing, would I take Luis Scola? I think I kind of would. It would be an interesting ad. Now, why is it not happening? Well, now we have to go back and figure in the salary thing. First of all, you don't have a roster spot. Second of all, you got to cut somebody to make that happen. And then you're adding more salary, and now you're over the luxury tax because the Blazers couldn't move Azili. If they had moved Festus, they might be able to sign him to a minimum contract, and then that would be allowable even though they're over the cap, or use an exception. But they can't do it now without going over the luxury tax. So no, nobody will be coming off the waiver wire to Portland. That would have been another missed opportunity if the Blazers were any good enough this year to justify bringing on someone. And provided, of course, you can get Scola to come here. Now, a guy that you wanted a little bit, I think, as I recall, or at least wanted to talk about as he hit the waiver wire, was Terrence Jones, Portland product. We need to put the caveat in to begin with that he had some issues, apparently assaulted a homeless person when he was in Portland, and that's not forgotten and should not be forgotten. For the sake of basketball reasons, would Terrence Jones be a person that you would think of?
Yeah, I mean, the off-the-court stuff obviously is nasty. It's not something you ever want to be
It's
involved.
A different level.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Exactly.
It's okay. We've talked about off-the-court stuff with, like Boogie in the locker room or whatever.
There's arguing with reporters and being nasty and those kind of things, being caught on camera, doing something stupid or like Jaleel Okafor, getting in a fist fight with a fan. That's not good. Then there's the nasty stuff. And what Terrence Jones was wrapped up in was nasty. If you can dissociate from that and go pure basketball reasons, Terrence Jones makes a crap ton of sense. He's an incredibly gifted basketball player. He's strong. He's athletic. He's a two-way player. He can be a tweener 4 or 5. I mean, he's basically everything you want Noah Vonleh to be. That's really what he is. He can step out and knock down a shot. He can create off the dribble a little bit. He's a solid passer. He's got some nastiness to him. I mean, he's a strong kid too. I mean, everything about him from a basketball sense, I would kill to have him on this team. So the fact that a lot of teams aren't jumping at him to sign him kind of makes you wonder.
Yeah. And in the end, we should put the other factor back in and say, I vote no. I mean, I just not going to be worth the risk and not going to be worth the off-court issues for me. I just can't do it. I would take 100 Boogies over one Terrence Jones at this point, and not just for talent, but because I think that would be the final thing that in addition to the moral issues I have with it, obviously the final straw for the Blazers, the final thing they have is at least some measure of likability. And as soon as that goes,
everybody on this roster is likable, right? I mean, there's nobody on here, whether or not you like Alan Crabb or Evan Turner's contract, they're likable, good, fun, jovial dudes. Like, there's nobody. There's nobody here that's
an easy team to root for.
Exactly.
Yeah, in that sense. And that would just, again, it's a moral issue or a justice issue first and foremost. And beyond that justice / moral / history issue also would very much affect the perception of the team. So, no.
Do you think there's a level that a team needs to get to before they can make a move like that, where there's a risk analysis against talent?
We have to be careful here because now we're measuring two different things, for me anyway. And I think it depends on that justice issue. It depends on that social acceptability / action / criminal thing. I mean, does everybody deserve a second chance? Maybe not. But if you even have to think about that, for me, I think you have serious questions about whether this guy's really going to be an asset to your team. And the chance of recidivism, even if it's not exactly in that kind of issue, I'm not sure Terrence Jones would ever do that again. But you think of things like domestic violence and what have you that have a strong repeat offense factor. And I think more and more teams are going to have to be saying, no, there's just a code of conduct that
I think
if
it's
you're
what you're seeing in the
public eye.
Fairness, the team's not rushing to sign him.
Yeah. Now the problem will be, and the reason I feel dirty about that is that I think you're right. If a guy has enough talent, that's going to be overlooked. It's either going to be buried or, let's get on the forgiveness bandwagon, or, let's hope it won't happen again. This guy's going to get, 20 and 15 for us every night. Mm-hmm. So I acknowledge that that's a factor. I just hope that I don't fall prey to that. But I mean, who knows? Let's just hope it's not tested. In any case, so they can't pick up anybody off the waiver wire. But let's talk about the guy everybody's excited about, the guy that they do have. Lost a couple teeth in their last game, still is producing. Let's read off these stats. This would be Jusuf Nurkic, of course, as a trailblazer. 54% shooting from the field. He is averaging 7.7 rebounds and 2.7 assists per game, 11 points a night. You compare that with Mason Plumlee, 11 points a night, 4 assists per game, but only 8 rebounds. Also that same 53% range from the field. So right now, not looking too bad. What do you think?
Nurk has had 2 really good games and 1 subpar game. His game against Toronto, he tried to go head-to-head with Val and did some pretty nice work. And when we had Adam Maras on, there was one thing that really stuck out as far as things to watch for with Nurkic. And he said that while as strong and physical and dynamic as he can be and as great as his footwork is, he can do all of those things, and then at the last step, he'll want to finesse and do something, a little wrist flip or just kind of toss it up there with a light touch. And I saw that kind of rear its head against Toronto. And that's not necessarily a problem. But when you see how effective he is, his matchup against Vucevic in Orlando, he went at him over and over and over again. I think it was the second time in Vucevic's entire career where he didn't have at least a double-double against Portland. So that alone kind of speaks to the level of physicality that Nurkic showed against Vucevic. And I was expecting to see the same thing with Valanciunas, and it seemed like at times Nurk backed down just a little bit and opted to go for a softer stance. But I did see some really nice things in that game as well. Unbelievable catch in traffic, redirected pass to Noel Vonleh for a dunk. That was absolutely beautiful. Had a couple really nice footwork-oriented moves in the post where didn't quite finish. Again, that kind of goes to that finesse game. But those are things that we're talking about how the Blazers have changed their offense. And as this season kind of goes and progresses, I want to see how that advances. Defensively, Nurkic, I've liked what I've seen from him. He's been very physical, meeting guys at the point of attack, out at the elbows, funneling them off. He's gotten a little bit of foul trouble, but foul trouble because of physicality isn't something I've ever been bothered by. Foul trouble because of not anticipating or being in the wrong position, those are issues. Foul trouble because you wanted to push a guy around a little bit, that's kind of what I'm looking for in that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How much do you perceive the Blazers using Nurkic differently defensively than they did Plumlee? Are they asking less of him, or at least asking him to cover less territory?
Oh, he's being put in a box. He's literally being put in a box that's about 3 feet outside the paint to the right or the left, and 2.5 to 3 feet outside the top of the free throw line. He is not coming above the elbows. He'll take a step or two, and even then, you see him come up, and he's like, nah. And I almost guarantee that that's a game plan. And while opponents can counter that much easier knowing that he's not going to come up, at the same time, you're seeing the Blazers guards, they don't have a choice. They don't have Mason Plumlee coming up to push and press away, or even Myers Leonard at times last night against Toronto when he came up and helped on the trap. Otherwise, these guards are having to fight over screens. And that's something that just hasn't been a regular occurrence. And so you're seeing them actively trying at least to fight over those screens because they know they have to, because they don't have the help coming. So that's a little bit of a wrinkle that I've seen. And while they haven't been great at it, they're at least, I think, trying more cognizant of trying to work through those. So those things, in a sense, I believe are actually going to help the team in the long run.
At least they know what they have to do. The thing that struck me about Nurkic is he's one guy who looks happy to be out there playing
he's thrilled
right now.
He's on Twitter right now. I think he was the first one to tell Myers Leonard happy birthday this morning, like 8:00 in the morning. Like he is just happy to go to work, man.
Yeah. I mean, he's free. I mean, it's like he's getting pretty much what he wanted. And that the fact that stands out so much says a little bit about the season and the locker room right now. That said, maybe that's the little bit of the boost that the Blazers needed. I mean, that they had that last year, I think, from most of their guys as they looked around and say, hey, can you believe what we're doing? This is awesome. Yeah. This year, not so awesome, but Nurk thinks it is, no matter what the record is.
He's coming in hey guys, isn't it a glorious morning? It's the best day ever.
Now, hopefully that lasts for him. I mean, eventually that'll wear thin, but maybe it'll be contagious before it does. Now, the Blazers have lost 2 and won 1 since Nurk has been on board, so that hasn't changed too much.
They should be,
but since
let's be serious.
Well, Orlando, they beat Orlando pretty handily. It's not bad.
They were down 11 with 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, but, you need a little bit of Lillard time and a little bit of fourth quarter comeback. That's in Portland's DNA. I will maintain that Orlando win was legit. Mostly because
a win's a win, but
if Orlando's not a great team, it doesn't surprise me that they came back. So, I mean, they 112-103 win versus Orlando, 112-106 loss versus Toronto. Pretty much what you'd expect. I think it's fair to say that neither Nurkic nor new attitude has changed much, but I don't know. least the Orlando win was nice. I mean, it was 1 in 5, and they've only had 2 wins to 7 losses. We're looking at through this,
so any wins two good. Totally different prisms. I'm completely and totally hoping for an 23 stretch to get as low in the lottery as possible. I mean,
stop it!
It's to the point. Okay, it's something I'll probably harp on between now and the last game of the regular season. Portland is 2 games from having the 5th worst record in the league. 2 games back of the Philadelphia 76ers. That's the difference between the 5th pick and the 10th pick. And in this draft, that is huge.
They may get there, but you should not like it. It feels like, it feels like to me.
No, I feel dirty, but it's what needs to be done.
It feels like to me like the Blazers got their 1-year chip last year when they went to the playoffs and they got the second round. They're like, hey, yeah, we've been winning and we have our 1-year chip now. And now you're freaking back in the bar, like in the lottery going, how many losses do we need in order to get, give me another one, make it a double. And it's
it's weird, honestly. It's really weird before March Madness that I've done this much film work and research on draft picks.
Oh yeah, it's all about
really
the draft
weird
now,
feeling.
But that's not okay. I mean, I understand it, I get it, but and by the way, you and I were among the foremost people after that playoff run last year saying this is not indicative. I mean, we pretty much spent June and half of July saying no, you got to do something else because this is not going to hold up. So it's not like I'm disappointed. It's not like I'm surprised. It's just like
I'm not thrilled that they're 10 games under 500.
No, I'm just like this talk. We were not supposed to be having this talk.
Every time that I brought this up during the summer, you and David McKay would both scold me in that this is not something as an organization that can be done. You can't go back down the tank path after committing these assets into this team going forward.
You can't. You're right. You can't, but they are. This is the problem. This is the thing. It's like they went to rehab. That's what I'm saying. You cannot. I mean, you understand it as long as situation is so dire that you need that drink to get through the day. It's not that you approve of it. And this is a bad analogy. I know, folks. Apologies to anyone who's going through this, but ride with me for a second. When you're going through it and it's dismal, there's a little bit of leeway saying, okay, I get why this is happening. But once you've got it straightened out, you can't go back to it. And they're going back to it, and that's just wrong. And I understand it. I just don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about tanking.
The crazy thing
they should win every game. Win every game you can. Period. Every game.
I get it from the mentality standpoint. I truly do. In that
every game
you cannot ask Damian Lillard to tank this. It's not something the players can do. It's not in their DNA. It's not in their blood. And I think David McKay actually said this perfectly. Players don't tank. Organizations do.
Yeah. Well, you know what you're going to see is 6,000 injuries between now and the.
Honestly, I was surprised Aminu came back.
Not to discredit. Okay. Want to make sure, don't misunderstand me. Sure, the injuries are legit, but you know what starts to happen to teams at the end of the season when things are going awry and the lottery becomes a priority. All of a sudden, injuries that people would have played through.
Probable goes to questionable real quick.
Yeah, exactly. And so that there will be clues there, I am sure, not to diminish anyone who's injured or to disparage the players at all. I'm just saying that often this happens. And so I hope it doesn't happen. You kind of feel it coming.
The writing's already on the wall.
You know what? I don't feel this is weird because I do not believe in karma as a philosophy, but I think this stuff happens like when you actually try to game it, you pay a price in losses and in a losing culture around your franchise that your draft picks never seem to make up for, at least in Portland. And it seems like your draft picks get cursed. And believe me, I'm the last person to believe in the superstitious voodoo, but I think that happens to the Blazers. I think we are the one franchise who above all cannot go, hey, let's tank for the number 1 pick, because guess what? That never, ever works out.
Well, I mean, take a look at it. Just this is my conspiracy theory for the week. Neil O'Shea has outwardly said that we're looking towards the draft now. Yeah. Damian Lillard is the key to this team in wins and losses. I mean, if he plays well, they probably got a really good chance of winning, right? Would you agree with that?
Well, it doesn't. It's more than just Lillard, but okay, let's keep going.
Just for the sake of this argument, who's the guy who's worked himself into the rotation all of a sudden? Shabazz Napier. Mm-hmm. Remember, that was Pat Connaughton before the All-Star break. What position does Shabazz Napier play?
Oh, small forward now.
Yeah.
Right?
But I mean doesn't it just look like it's shaping up to have Damian Lillard's minutes drop from 36 to 33 to 28 or so?
Yeah. Which, by the way, maybe should have happened earlier, not to 28. But I am also a fan of resting Lillard as much as possible because every year seems to get nagging injuries. And I think
the stretch
in some ways, in some ways, I don't want to say he's been overplayed because his minutes don't speak. He was early in his career.
He was top 4 in the league the first 4 years, I believe.
His minutes are moderated now. I get it. But at the same time, I think you have to keep him off the injury list, which would argue for some depth. So there's an argument to play Napier. There's an argument to develop him. And by the way, 2 of those arguments are playing for other teams right now.
Playing really well for other teams.
Patty Mills. Yeah, so you don't want to have that happen again. So I'm good with Napier getting playing time. I'm good with Lillard sitting. And, frankly, when the excuses come out or the explanations come out, I will ride with that. But until then, I'm going to stick my fingers in the air. And by the way, even then, I'm going to stick my fingers in the air and go, la, 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 win that game. Now, speaking of the draft, let's not go into it too early because, we're going to spend most of May and June doing this.
April.
No, we won't go that soon. Oh, my gosh. How long? Well, though we may have to because you know what? The Blazers have 3 draft picks that could conceivably anywhere technically from number 1, if the lottery balls go right, all the way down to like the 30th picks. So basically, everybody in the first round has to be researched. So I hope everybody's ready for this because it's going to be a big topic. But my question, just preliminary question, Blazers have 3 draft picks. Is it possible for them to use all 3 of those draft picks? I don't just mean draft people. I'm not asking whether they should trade up. I'm just saying, assume that they do not make a move, that they draft all those players to keep. Is that even feasible that 3 guys can crack this lineup?
The crazy thing is when we sat down to talk about this is the question that I had. Could they use all 3? Let's take a look at what's going on with this team. With the way everything is rolling out heading into the summer, physically, they can carry those 3 guys. There's a reasonable assumption to be made that they could use all 3 and bring in 3 people without doing a Eurostash. That's kind of crazy when you think about how locked in this team is, supposedly. So you could be looking at a top flight lottery pick, a mid-round pick, and basically a late first, early second round pick and the Cavs pick, in that all 3 of those guys could be looked at as early contributors heading into next season. I mean, if that's not a just drastic shift from the narrative of 6 months ago, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, A, that's interesting. B, if they use all 3 first-round draft picks, they will have filled up their 15-man roster with guaranteed contracts, presuming they don't trade anyone away, which, by the way, of course, I believe they'll probably try to do. But in order to even fit those on, Festus Ezeli has to go away, Pat Connaughton has to go away, Tim Quarterman has to go away. Those are 3 non-guaranteed contracts. If you're not going to trade somebody, that's what has to happen.
And now you're all guaranteed from top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Now, the rookie scale is going to go up. I'm not sure I have the numbers right in front of me right now in terms of what those would be, but you're talking probably 6
between those 3 guys. You're probably looking at $8 to $9 million in the first season.
That's this year. It depends on where that first pick really is.
Exactly.
It goes up
if that first pick is a top 3 pick, that number goes up pretty darn quick.
Yeah. Well, in any case, so the Blazers fit on all three of those, right? Every single person on the roster is guaranteed at that point. Now, they are right now with non-guaranteed contracts scheduled to pay just shy of $133 million in salary next year. They add another 10 million to that if you get your dream pick, or get up to number 5 or whatever.
You're broaching 140 million, which is 140 million above the hard cap.
Yeah, for this team.
Let that settle in for a second, folks.
Yeah. $140 million.
That's absolutely insane. When you and I sat here and looked at this, dude, we had no intention of ever discussing this part of the whole deal. It was just, hey, who's guaranteed and who's not next year? And could we bring in 3 guys feasibly? Is that something they could entertain? And while, yes, it's true, we also happen to look upon the amount of money guaranteed next year and the year after and the year after that. And it was just, fireworks.
Let's talk about 2000, because we're talking about just draft. Let's just improve through the draft. Now, first of all, if they don't trade anybody away, well, they would lose Ed Davis. So they would have room for another draft pick the year after. And Noah Vonleh, Nurkic, Napier, and Connaughton Quarterman would have to already be gone. So we got Nurkic, Napier, and Vonleh, any of whom could go to make room for the next draft pick. But without any of those qualifying offers, and without any of this year's draft picks, the Blazers are scheduled to pay out $120 million guaranteed in 2018-19. That's the year after this one. And that would be carrying a roster of 8 people. Okay. To add in those 3 draft picks, that would be a roster of 11. And now you're approaching between $127 and $130 million.
And you're filling
for
out the
a roster
of
11.
With MLE, vet and guys.
You are, well, no. Oh, you have to say if you sign Nurkic to his qualifying offer, then you're right, above 130, right? So that's without Nurkic. That's
so
without
you're looking
Vonleh.
at Mins, basically.
That's without Napier, your guy that you're playing now. It's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. They have got to do something. I mean, they are in 2018-19,
and this is why they almost have to use those 3 draft picks, because it's a controlled cost for 4 years.
Or they have to use it to trade away, to package with a big salary or something. In 2018-19, they are scheduled to pay $36 million to Alan Crabb and Evan Turner alone. $36 million for those 2. Now, obviously, the cap has gone up and the tax line has gone up because of the new TV deal. But even under that system, there's no way this looks good. We've heard about tradable contracts. We've heard about, gaming the system, getting ahead of the curve. This is not ahead of the curve. This is off the guardrail, down the salary cap cliff. They have got to make a move to get rid of some of these salaries, or they've got to compete for a title with this team. I don't see any middle space in between those 2.
And this is why we're talking about the difference between players tanking and an organization tanking, and why it's necessary, because the means for talent acquisition are incredibly limited when your salary structure is balanced as such in the near future. You can't compete on a financial level, on an asset level, on a talent level when you're hamstrung like that going into free agency or trades. Because remember, there's a lot of ramifications that come along with free agent and trade deals when you're up against or over the luxury tax. There's certain things you can and cannot do. There's things that happen to your mid-level exception and how much that goes down, and that how competitive that makes you in the free agent market. There are so many CBA implications for this team, and that's the thing, is that this team has a construction issue as far as 1 through 5. They have a contract issue, and now you're throwing in CBA issues in the future, and that's why something as simple as drafting now is so huge.
Well, and it's the needle through which you have to thread this is becoming progressively smaller to get a good outcome. I mean, and it's closing rapidly. I mean, let's name off the issues. I mean, you don't have roster spots. You don't have cap room. You don't have the ability to chase free agents. You have some ability to make trades, but you almost got to, you really almost have to dump some salary before you can make a credible trade, unless those salaries match up so tightly that it's perfect, right? The ability to make 2-for-1 trades or what have you is limited. Not that you couldn't make an outgoing one with, say, I don't know, a mid-range salary and a really low salary. Obviously, you can do that. But if you're talking about moving significant players and taking significant players in, you cannot take much more salary than you've already acquired, because you already have, just because it's going to be tripled. It's going to be quadrupled. Taking on $2 million more or $2.5 million more, that's $8 to $10 million more that you're taking in. Just in a practical sense, it doesn't make sense. So, and on top of all that, with all these problems, with all the tightness on here, you just don't have enough talent. And so what do?
You tank. And that's why I know I keep coming back to it, and I know I sound like a broken record, but when you've got this many things that are painting you into the corner, you only have so many ways out. It's either these guys take monumental leaps. That means Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum become not just good, or not just average, but good to great two-way players.
Okay, stop right there. Who's leaping? I'll run him down. Damian Lillard? No, I think he said it's not as his peak, but he's not like going to add.
You're not going to see a Giannis growth where he goes from 13 to 25 points.
Alan Crabb, perhaps, but not on this team because there's just not enough room. Evan Turner, no. Myers Leonard, God, we've hoped so, but not yet.
Even if let's stop right there.
Maybe.
Let's say Myers Leonard does take that huge leap. Is Myers Leonard giving you 15 and 8? Is that, and giving you, let's say, above average defense? Is that enough to get you?
You hope he gives you 20 and 10.
But that's what I'm saying. A leap gets him to 15 and 8. I mean, to get to 20 and 10, you're talking about moving mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Myers, but 20 and 10, that's elite level category. And does anybody see that kind of move coming from him?
Let's put Myers in that category. Let's just say, okay, here, who are we depending on? Who are we hoping takes a leap? Myers Leonard, yeah, sure. Mo Harkless, yeah, sure. Al-Farouq Aminu, probably not at this point. Festus Ezeli, no, he's going to be gone. Ed Davis, no, he's going to be gone. CJ McCollum.
He's got one more gear left.
Right. Where's that gear going to? He's going to score 28? Is his defense going to expand? I mean, I see an incremental improvement possible, and I see certainly blending into the game and into the team. Sure, I get that, but that's not really a leap. It's more of a filling out of what's already there to me. Noah Vonleh, sure, let's put him in the category. Nurkic, let's put him in that category. Napier, let's put him in that category. I don't think we're going to make too much of a case for Connaughton, Layman, or Quarterman at this point. So who are you hoping?
You have three young bigs. Basically, all your hopes as far as the astronomical leap, the guy to make the Jokic leap from potential laden product
Nurkic,
to possible MVP caliber player, a Porzingis or a Jokic or something like that. You're hoping one of those three guys does that.
Let's name them. Let's name all of them. You're hoping Leonard, Harkless, Vonleh, Nurkic, or Napier. That's the five. That's the five on which you are spending $130 to $140 million, hoping that they make a leap. That's what you're investing $140 million in. I know you're paying other players, but basically you're paying that. You're hoping those
you're hedging your bets that those guys are going to get to the next level.
Into contention. For $140 million, you better be into contention. Now, does that seem like a sane bet? Would you, if you fielded those five and you gave them all the minutes they could eat, would you expect them to make? I'm not sure that they,
Don't get me wrong. I love those guys.
No, I do too. But it's not the situation.
If you're stepping away from it and looking at it from that frame of mind, that's just, that sounds crazy. Let's just call it what it is. That sounds absolutely nuts.
So here's what you have to do to make your point, Dan. You've got to get as high a draft picks as possible because you know you are going to have to dump some of these guys for minimal return, very minimal salary return. You're probably going to have to eat a trade. Or you're going to do
take 2 second-round picks. The top 55, protected second-round pick that was sent off for Harkless.
Yeah, and get 2 of them, and you figured you doubled your investment or something like that. Now, not that I'd trade Moa. He's one of the guys I want to keep. But reality says that some of these guys you're going to have to sell pretty low on in order to clear up the nightmare and allow some room for growth. And so, that this would make your draft argument that how are you gonna survive that without getting worse? You better make those draft picks hit.
There's 2 ways that this goes. It's you bottom out and you tank as hard as you can and get draft picks and roll the dice that way, or a sweetheart deal like the Pelicans just got for Boogie comes along. Those are your options.
But they were there. That Boogie and Noel were just available and just got moved for nothing, and you couldn't get them.
That's what I'm saying. It has to literally fall in your lap. I mean, this is almost taking Adam Silver in a David Stern-like manner, forcing Chris Paul from the Lakers to the Clippers. Like they have to force Cat from the Timberwolves to the Blazers for some reason on a rookie deal. Again, short of that, what's happening?
Look, you say sweetheart deals don't happen, and they did, and it wasn't Portland. So what do you do? You can't at this point, even that wears thin. So literally, there's the thing that's scary about this is that even with all our talk over the summer, it's been 9 months. 9 months ago, we were so far away from having this conversation, and a bunch of summer signings and a bunch of, I don't want to say underperforming. They may be performing about at the level they are, but basically a halfway lousy season has now made really clear what an absolute nightmare this is. So I guess we're going to end on that cheery note. Hey, Nurkic. Yay, Nurkic. I like Nurkic. Don't you like him?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I still think there's and for those of you that are going to poo-poo this, there's redeemable qualities in the tail run of this season. Anybody who's asked me, hey, what are you looking for as this goes down? And this is actually where my feature is going to be this week in kind of painting a make your own adventure look for the Trailblazers. And one of those paths is player development. Watch Myers Leonard. Watch Joseph Nurkic. Watch C.J. McCollum play more on the point guard. Watch Shabazz Napier go through growing pains. Change the lens you view. And for those people that were a lot like me in a sense, in that, I crave wins and I don't want to see losses. But if you can dissociate yourself from that and bring yourself to appreciate the growing pains that come along with the youth of the NBA and understanding that even mistakes can be lauded when they learn from them. There's a lot of fun in that. And I know that sounds like everyone kind of gets a trophy kind of talk, but there's so much minutia that goes on that you can, especially with young players, that you can really enjoy and take in and be a part of. And I think the Portland fan base is better equipped as an intelligent fan base to do so than others could be.
All right. Well, I've got a kitten here knocking everything off my desk, including the internet connection, a pop can, and various pens and pencils. So that must be his signal that it's time to go. And by the way, even if you're watching player development, help those players win every game with with Dan Marang. I'm Dave Deckard, wishing you a happy week. We will see you again or hear from you again very soon. And thank you for joining us on the Blazers Edge podcast.